Some tokens have gone absolutely crazy this week with 400%, 100%, 96% gains. But is this the start of a bull run or is this a bull trap? Let's hop over into the charts and analyze the Bitcoin chart, the Ethereum chart, and the altcoin chart in a larger time frame to see what is going on. So here we are now in the Bitcoin chart, and what we're looking at in this chart is the weekly candles. Now, it's been a few weeks since I posted an analysis video, and in previous videos, I done Bitcoin on its own, I done Ethereum on its own, and then I done Total Tree on its own. But what we're going to do is wrap all of them up this month into the one video. So we have the January month close to look at, and we have the weekly candles to also look at. So if you remember from our previous video, we had this pink trend line here that I drew, and this pink trend line has been in existence since the peak back in November 21, and we blasted through this at the end of December. Now we had another trend line to blast past, which is this green dotted one, and that was a shorter time frame that kind of came into existence back in June, and then we really kind of collapsed again with the FTX collapse. And what happened on the weekly chart in January? We actually broke above this trend line, and we continue to rise above this trend line, bringing us above the FTX collapse mark. So what I done then was I drew another trend line because I keep my analysis as simple as I possibly can. So I have a trend line going here from November, and it hit 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So it was a fairly solid trend line. This week then at the 16th of January, we bounced over, but the week after we closed above it. We then had a nice little retest, which we can see. And since that retest, we have been bouncing up. Now, on the weekly averages, let's bring up the EMAs on the weekly averages. And on the weekly average, we had the golden line here, which is the 50-week cross below the death cross below the 200-week. Now, let's zoom in there a little bit and see. And we can still see that the 50-week is below the 200-week. And this is the first time in Bitcoin's history to have this. Now, at the same time, in the weekly, we had a golden cross where they crossed upwards. Now, what we will notice is that we are bouncing here off this trend line, and we're not breaking above this trend line at all. So we're hovering between the 20-week trend line and the 200-week trend line. So let's come back down here and see exactly where we are. Now, where we bounced off here on this 25,000, just above 25,000 last week, is in line with the top of this candle here in August. And we haven't managed to break above this yet on the weekly time frame. Now, let's just turn off the moving averages for a minute, just so we can make the chart a little bit clearer to see. And I'm going to switch from the weekly chart to the monthly chart because zooming out on the charts gives you a much better picture of the trend as it's forming. And we can see here on the monthly trend that we've closed above this. This is the February candle, but the January candle was just touching the top of this trend line here, and we hadn't actually broke above it. Now, because I look at larger time frames, what I'd be looking for is, and we probably touch back down to this trend line before we do go up another leg. Now, if we go up another leg, we could easily be looking at going up anywhere between 28,000 and the 32,000 mark. And that's a target that a lot of other crypto analysis are actually facing out there. But it does come with a warning. Although all this news is really, really positive, the year after a massive collapse in the crypto market, the collapse of the bull run, we tend to travel sideways for a year. Now, sideways doesn't mean we have no movement. As we can see, we've had great gains here. We've gone up from 16,000 all the way up to 25,000. So we've done a 50% increase in Bitcoin alone this year. But we can easily just come back down and retouch under this 20 grand. And a lot of people are saying that this is going to happen and it could happen really soon. Now, it was being called for a couple of weeks ago, and we then had all that saga with stable coins, and people needed to get out of stable coins, and the safest place to go was to Bitcoin. But although Bitcoin has held up with this news and has increased in price, we've also seen an increase in price in the Ethereum chart. Now, before we move over to the Ethereum chart, let's turn on the moving averages here on the monthly. So on the monthly here, we can see the 20-month moving average being the red line and the 50-month moving average being this orange line. And then this light blue turquoise line being the 100-month moving average. Now, we didn't break below this moving, we wick slightly below it, but at the moment, we are hitting resistance now at this 50-week and thinking about breaking above it up to this, touching this 20-week moving average. So let's move over to the Ethereum chart. And I'm just going to change back to the weekly chart for this. And in the weekly chart, we will turn off the moving averages as well. I'll just zoom it in a bit so we can see a little bit clearer what's going on. So we have this pink trend line, which we blasted past in January. So what I done was drew another trend line, this green dotted trend line. And as we can see with this green dotted trend line, it has hit quite a lot of weeks. But last week it closed above, and this week, which is only Monday, is starting to climb above it, but we may see a retouch. Now, what we haven't done with Ethereum is break the August high. So this would be the new target, would be, if we were to break upwards, would be 1900, around 1925 to around 2000 if we were to break up on this. But we see all these wicks here going across on the chart. We have all of this liquidity to fill up, to capture, to get this. Now, Ethereum hasn't taken the rise that Bitcoin has taken, and it would be nice to see. There is a W pattern there that's forming, but it looks like it could be a bit of a cup and handle pattern as well, which could easily just break up. Now let's have a look at the moving averages on the weekly chart. So with the moving averages, and I'm going to hide these trend lines so you can see a lot clearer where we are. So we broke above this neckline that we have here. So at the moment, we're in between the 20-week moving average and the 50-week moving average. We can see that we're also above the 200-week moving average. So this moving average is a resistance that we've been finding hard to break. And if we break above it, as I said, the next port of call that we're looking for is around 1900 to 2000 on the weekly chart. So we have a nice sideways pattern forming there, and it is actually starting to narrow down or to squeeze up, coil up a little bit more for its next move. Now, whether that next move is up or that next move is down is anybody's guess. But at the moment, it's looking healthy enough that we could move up and reach that 19 and then make a decision whether it's going to go a little bit further or go back down. So let's turn off these moving averages for a second and hop over to the monthly chart on Ethereum. And the monthly chart on Ethereum isn't really telling us a different story. Yes, we have touched on the last month candle, the January candle, that we came up to this trend line. We did touch the trend line, but we didn't manage to break it. So what we'd be looking for this month is to close a candle above this trend line, maybe retouch the trend line if there is going to be a bounce up. But as you can see, there is a pattern forming, this sideways pattern that is being forming that has not yet broke on the Ethereum chart. Now, it's altcoins that have really gone crazy in the last couple of weeks. So let's go into the total tree chart. Now, the total tree chart is the all coins except for Bitcoin and Ethereum. So this is reflective of the altcoin market. Now, I was saying in the previous video that we've had this trend forming and it's been in place for quite some time, this downward trend, this downward channel, and it's been in place for some time. And the last time we looked at this, we hadn't broke above this trend line. Now we can see that we have actually broke above it in the last week. So the week before we were in red and we hadn't fully closed above it. But last week we did manage to actually break through that trend line. We also managed to break through the longer term trend line, this red line that we have going all the way back to November. And we've managed to break past that as well. So on the weekly time frame, this is looking nice and healthy and is looking nice and strong. Now, I say that with a warning. We had, as I said, the saga with all of the stable coins last week, and I don't yet think that's over. And people are moving into safer havens and they moved into Bitcoin, and the bigger players will now move money into altcoins now, and they'll suck money out of altcoins by taking the price back down to accumulate more Bitcoin. So be very, very careful. This year of sideways action is an accumulation year for many of the big players in the crypto market. So let's have a look at the monthly chart now for this total tree. And we can see here in the monthly chart that the end of January that we had not broken the top of this trend line. So this now being February and it's only the middle of February, it's hard to decide how this candle is closing, but it's looking strong and it's looking healthy. So the overall trend has broken. Now, we could probably reshift this trend line now and make it still intact because it's still touching 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. And taking in the month of February with the trend line moved, we still kind of need to break above this too. So what am I hoping to see here? Well, obviously, I am hoping to see the markets take off. But like I said, I do anticipate sideways movement being the bulls being wrecked and the bears being wrecked at some stage during this year. The halving is not till next year. And it's normally after the halving that we see the bull run. So I think the halving is coming in around April. Then we see Bitcoin take off. Bitcoin will reclaim more dominance, and then Bitcoin will fade, move into Ethereum, and then down through the altcoins. Is now a time to be selling? Well, look, if you bought down here, you're up. Some people are up 300-400% on altcoins. Take profits on the way up. Now, none of this is financial advice, but from my own experience of easily being wrecked, if you don't take profits on the way up, you do risk losing it all. If you're enjoying this video, I do hope that you will subscribe to my channel and hit that notifications button so you don't miss any more of my videos. Also, if you're interested in learning how to do your own research in crypto, which is so advisable, do watch this video that's being shared on the screen now. Thanks for watching. Goodbye now.